Hello, my name is Carl Casteel, and I am the librarian at Bellaire High School in Houston Independent School District. I've been librarian here since December of 2002. The library services 3,700 students in a school that provides a magnet component as well as IB, AP, college preparatory, and then general academic. So we have a wide variety of students who attend Bellaire. It's a comprehensive high school, even though it does have a magnet component. I'm going to speak about collaboration today and what I've done to try to engender collaboration with teachers in our school. When I first came to Bellaire, teachers were using the library sporadically for projects that they initiated in their classrooms, sometimes through their departments and sometimes individually. But with the advent and pursuit of standardized testing, of course TEKS and now STAR, increasingly teachers found themselves unable to allocate the class time that's necessary for an in-depth research project. So it goes without saying, library use began to drop off from teachers, and when teachers don't bring students, then of course your students don't necessarily seek out the library. So I began to look at the TEKS to find areas where the library would fit into what teachers were trying to accomplish on certainly the first TEKS test and then later the STAR test. One component that is in all of the high school TEKS, I didn't look below the high school, is a research component. And knowing that teachers really couldn't allocate large chunks of time to research projects, I began to devise a system that was based on the independent investigation method to bring to teachers as a possibility for use in their classrooms. It made sense to me to contact our English teachers first, which I did. Our freshman and sophomore English teachers were not as interested as our junior, senior English teachers, so I started with the junior, senior English teachers, and I presented to them a methodology based on the IIM method that they could use to help their students prepare for college and the research component that the students will probably find in a good university. I went out and recruited. I asked teachers to meet with me at their lunch periods so that they came down, or their conference periods, and I pitched the idea of doing a research project and collaborating with them. I wanted them to understand that I was not imposing a system on them, but that I would work with them to slice and dice where necessary in order to meet their needs, the students' needs, and that's how we progressed. This started in, I believe we began in around 2005, and it's been almost a decade that we've been doing junior, senior English research papers. We start in the fall, and now, because here at Bellaire we have a PLC model, the junior and senior English PLCs determine what their research will be in any given semester. So the last several years, and the topics have changed, but the last several years we have focused on the 1960s and the cultural revolution that occurred during the 1960s. The junior teachers connect this with books that they're reading on Vietnam, and then they have devised a very long list of topics that arise out of the 1960s. The students choose their topic, and then after they've chosen the topic, the teachers approved it, we begin the process of preparing to write the paper or research the paper. One of the key components of the independent investigation method is that you do a lot of thinking before you actually start doing any research, which I think is really, really helpful for the students, because more often than not, what they want to do is run to the internet and go to Wikipedia and start looking for stuff and writing it down. What I do is I go to the classrooms, I go to the teachers' classrooms, which I think is helpful for the teachers because it's less disruptive. I go to their classrooms and I teach a thinking process, a critical thinking process that gets the students to a point where they can write a thesis statement. My agreement with the teachers is that I'm going to teach the thinking component. I'm going to teach certainly the research component, and I've also this past year introduced easybibprofessional.com, which I teach to the students, which allows this program allows them to do their note cards in the cloud, to do their outline, and to communicate with the teacher while they're doing that. And they also, of course, can do their bibliography. Then where I get off the boat, and that's what I tell the students, I'm going to leave this ship when it gets to the point the teacher's going to start talking about outlining, organization. That's their responsibility, and that's what they want to do. So we begin this process with critical thinking, usually in the middle of September. The research project usually takes about 6 weeks, and the teachers have milestones along the way. So for the first milestone is to generate a list of preliminary research questions that will allow them to get into the topic. And then the next component is for me to teach them how to use the internet constructively, how to access HISD databases, and to use them to the best advantage. We look at what resources are best for particular topics. So for example, in this library, we have a lot of books on the 1960s and the Vietnam War. I usually pull all of those books and have them readily available for the students to use, and they do. So we go through this process. And in that process, the teachers have an expectation that a certain number of articles will be submitted by a particular date. Once we get past the research component and the teachers are comfortable that the students have enough for bibliography, then I introduce easybib.com, professional version, and they do their bibliography. In EasyBib Professional, nothing works beyond the bibliography unless you have one. So it's really a milestone for the students to create a bibliography, to share it with their teachers. Their teachers grade the bibliography for accuracy, as well as for the variety of the resources the students have. And then after they've created their bibliography, I introduce them to the note-taking function in EasyBib Professional, and then the outlining portion of it. At that point, most of the teachers want their students to have a week or so to begin the process of creating note cards in the cloud, and the students do that. And then after the teachers are relatively sure that the students have enough material, then they ask me to do a plagiarism piece. And so I go into the classroom and I teach what plagiarism looks like, how to avoid it. This year, for the first time, rather than using my own PowerPoint, I actually used particularly good mini videos that EasyBib Professional provides on plagiarism. And then my work is done, and the students continue to work toward meeting the deadline for writing the papers. Usually in the fall, it's before Thanksgiving, and in the spring, the seniors do a research paper. The same procedures are followed, and theirs is due before spring break. What kind of success have we had with this approach? Teachers have told me that they are getting a better product. Certainly in many instances, and I mean, they're not what we would call university-ready papers. But what the students have done is they've gone through the process of thinking, the process of research, the process of organizing, the process of writing, and they turn something in that approximates a research paper. And they vary. I mean, some of them are great quality, and then some of them are last-minute slapdash, which is usually how the student operates anyway. Throughout the process, teachers send students to me for tutorials on perhaps the usual, I can't find any information on my topic, and I show them usually how wrong they are, and we'll find 2 or 3 articles that will at least get them on their way. I show them Boolean research so that they learn the power of words and their connections with one another. And once they've learned that, Boolean research or searching, they have a really powerful tool, and they're usually pretty amazed at the stuff that they can get out of an HISD database using it. We do have students, I don't want to make this sound as if it's 100% perfect, it isn't. There are students who never turn in a research paper, but there are also students who don't ordinarily turn in much of anything. So, but the research paper, at least here in the junior and senior classes, accounts for a great proportion of their semester grade. So there is an impetus to do it, and do it even at the most minimal level. That really is how collaborations work with me and the teachers. If they don't like something and they say, this year we adjusted, they didn't like particular length of time that certain things were taking, and I said I'll cut it back, and we did. More and more teachers are under pressure to meet STAR requirements and end-of-course exam requirements, so their time is precious and they don't want it wasted on worthless endeavors. So the coterie of teachers who've worked with me, and there are about 8 of them in the English department, have liked what we do. They've continued it over 10 years and have said that it makes and creates a better product, and that the students do learn how to write a research paper.